All right, I think we're going to get started. My name is Isaac Hamilton. I'm the Public Information Officer for Clackamas Fire. And thank you guys for coming out, and for those of you online for joining us. We are excited tonight to just really share some of the intent we have for the potential levy coming up in May of next year, and just kind of get some of your input on and some questions you might have regarding this levy and the purpose behind it. The way tonight's going to work a little bit, I'm going to have Chief Steve Dieters give the presentation. He's going to start our presentation tonight, and Chief Nick Brown. And then
that is my name.
After we give the presentation, we're going to take a little bit of a break. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask us, and you're here tonight, we'd like you to write them down on these cards over there on the table, and put them in the hat there, and we will grab those, collect those during the break, and then ask those afterwards. If you're online watching us with Facebook, go ahead and put your questions in the comments section. And if you're watching on Zoom, you can put your questions in the Q&A section, and we will grab those during the break and make sure those get answered afterwards. So after the break, we're going to have a panel come up here to answer your questions. Of course, Fire Chief Nick Brown, Assistant Chief Steve Dieters. We have our Operations Chief Dan Mulick, and Battalion Chief Brent Olson behind me. Director Chris Haas, who's on our Board of Directors, could not make it with us tonight, but he is our Board of Directors liaison for this levy. So again, tonight we'll do the presentation here in just a second. We'll talk through the reasons we are considering this levy, take a break, and then we'll have our Q&A. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Assistant Chief Steve Dieters.
Thank you, Isaac. So along with data, we use our mission statement and our purpose to drive a lot of our decisions. So I'm going to read this to you. Our purpose is to save lives and mitigate emergencies while bringing calm to chaos, to bring value to the communities we serve, and to make people's lives better. Our mission here at Clackamas Fire strives to be a well-trained team and empathetic professionals, constantly improving and empowering our people to best serve those we are sworn to protect. And like I said, we use this a lot to drive a lot of our decisions, and it played a lot into the decision to bring this information forward. So, Nick, want to walk us through?
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. So, really to dive into why we're here and how we got here, we've got to reflect back to 2020. As everyone will remember, in 2020, we faced something in this area in Clackamas County specifically that we haven't faced before with the wildfires. But before I dive specifically into 2020, Brent, is this just started in 2020, do you think, or has this been going before 2020?
Well, as a local items, it's really started before 2020, but definitely 2020 was the most impactful thing that this area has faced. But even going back as recently as 2014, we had the Pit 36 fire just outside of Estacada. And then in 2017, of course, folks remember the Gorge. That was the Eagle Creek fire that really impacted the Gorge greatly. So that led us into 2020 and then beyond. But it is definitely a growing problem for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So in 2020, within a 72-hour period from 6 p.m. On the Monday, the first night of the event, we responded to 144 working fires, and within 72 hours. And that was a mixture of house fires, wildfires into house fires, and then we had multiple instant events that turned into conflagrations, state conflagrations. Out of those 144 working fires that we had 24 greater alarm fires. And what a greater alarm fire, what we consider a greater alarm fire, it has to do with resources and resources that come to the fire. And so it's anything greater than a first alarm. A first alarm is a set number of apparatus and personnel that come. We had 24 greater alarm fires in that 72-hour period, from second alarm all the way up to a seventh alarm working fires. So after the 2020 wildfire, what we did is we wanted to expose our underbelly. We went out to a private consultant, and we wanted to see what went well and what didn't go well. And we had an after-action review from a group out of California. And that after action review is on our website, clackamasfire.com. On the main page, if you scroll down, you'll see the after action review, and that has all the information that came from that. But as we analyzed what went well, what didn't go well, where we could improve, we started to just gather data and started to really analyze where we were as an organization and how we could improve. That led to, in 2021, kind of a grassroots effort of much of what we're doing right here in these town hall format meetings. We had 3 meetings, one in Eagle Creek, one in Redland, and one in Beaver Creek. And as we reached out to our communities, the big thing for us was trying to, like our purpose statement, bring calm to chaos. We wanted to eliminate fears. We wanted to hear our communities and hear what are the big pressing things that concern them. And so as we did that, we started, again, focusing on wildfire response, preparedness, and resiliency, and really trying to gather and listen to our communities and what was concerning them. And then in 2022, post-COVID, like many public agencies, we hit some fiscal problems. We had some budget problems within our organization. And we had to reduce staffing. We had to reduce about 15% administrative staff, and we reduced about 9% of our fire response staff. And we reduced 5 companies from 4-person staffing down to 3. And we did that in an effort to balance our budget and to live within our means, because that's what we stand for. As far as Clackamas Fire, we're here for you, but we also need to be able to be fiscally responsible with the taxpayer dollar. So those budget cuts, they hit us, and they hit us hard like they have so many public agencies. So post-budget cuts, what we started to do is analyze and completing an internal analysis based on national standards and looking at how we compare to national standards as far as an effective response force, which is a set number of apparatus and personnel that need to be at a fire at a certain amount of time, as well as how and looking at our future funding and how we can improve that. And so what was really unique is we developed a future funding task force. And Steve, if you would kind of dive into that, the uniqueness of that future funding task force and what we did, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. As Chief said, we were post 22 and we were dealing with some of these reductions, some of these cuts. And so what the chief did is we put together a task force to look at what are some of our options. What made that task force unique, it was made up of the fire chief, myself, and labor representative, and a couple of other people, including Director Hawes, who couldn't make it here tonight. And that's kind of unique to include a board director in some of these decisions. So we started meeting once a week, and we started going through what are some of the options. What can we do? What further cuts can we make? What can we do internally? And we got to a point where we started bringing in our chief financial officer. We brought in ops. We brought in a lot of other people with their ideas, because we don't have all the best ideas. Usually it's just me that has the best idea, but these guys needed some help. And so we went through this process, and what we landed on was, honestly, we needed the community to invest in us so we can invest back into the community. So we came up with the Future Funding Task Force. We landed on this idea, and so we went to the board. The board president allowed this committee to continue at the time and look for these options, and we landed on this option to bring back to the board and come back to the communities, which leads us to today, which we brought back to the communities. This is the second event that we've done, and we have more planned, but really the proposed levy has a few components to it. It's additional firefighters out there in most of our stations to put more folks out there helping in the communities. Big part of it is we have 2 rural stations right now that are not staffed at all, and they're some of our most vulnerable areas, and as you'll see later in the presentation as Brent talks a little bit about it. But really it's bringing some rural equity to our organization, and this was very important to the task force, and I know to the chief that when we approached this, it was wall-to-wall coverage. Every community gets something, and it makes it better as a whole. So inside of all of our walls, this will improve everything. And then it's also to implement an alternate response model. So you'll hear more about that. And then also equipment to equip our folks in emergencies. and give them the equipment that they need. Brent.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Again, appreciate everyone coming out tonight. Appreciate everyone online. I'm here to talk about one of the big issues facing not only our area but across the state, and that's wildfires. Wildfires is an ever-increasing problem. Just as I kind of mentioned before, it's relatively new, but it's also not new. It's a threat that's been around, but it's an increasing threat that we're seeing year over year, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So the impact is disproportionately to our underprepared communities that face the risk of wildfire devastation. Those are the communities that we're looking within this levy to talk about staffing additional stations. The goal here is to keep fires small. I think that's something everybody can relate to. Small fires are easier fires to manage. To keep fires small, we need to get the right people at the right resource in the right place at the right time as quickly as possible. Getting out there and getting those fires small is about time and distance. And that's Logan and Clark's Community Stations 12, Stations 13 have some of the greatest risks in our fire district to wildfire. So that's that first bullet point of solution. 24/7 staffing would significantly enhance those responses. Strategic placement of firefighters and equipment closer to areas with significant wildfire risk. 12 and 13 is like I just spoke to, but it's also the increased staffing to the stations that we already have that lie adjacent to those. People make the difference. People and equipment, properly trained, properly outfitted, properly stationed, make the difference. And then the last kind of bullet point, but definitely not the last thing on a greater list, is mitigation. How do we know fire is going to get on the landscape despite our best efforts, but how do we make the impact of the fire when it gets on the landscape to lessen it so we can, one, catch the fire early, easy, and small, and then two, if it is and gets up and starts walking around, as they say, we can, it's not going to devastate things like we saw in 2020. So, looking at the map here. So this is an Oregon Department of Forestry map, and this is the wildfires that occurred between 1992 and 2001. We have a changing landscape. I think the impetus can be debated, but the results are undeniable. This map shows the large-scale fires across the state on a state global level. If we kind of focus right here on Clackamas County, we don't see really any red. That's 12 years. Let's fast forward to the last 12 years. Right? I think it's pretty impactful. Right there across the state, we've been on a number of fires. I've been on many of these fires that are located on this map, from down in Southwest Oregon, Central Oregon, Far East Oregon, Northeast Oregon, and unfortunately, the ones right here in our own county. If we zoom into Clackamas County, we can talk about some of the fires that have been impactful to us. We've got the Beachy Creek Fire, which is down here in Marion County, in the lower portion of Clackamas County. Of course, we have the Riverside, which is the one everybody thinks about, 2020 specifically at Estacada. That's the larger one right in the middle. And some of the smaller ones that are kind of spattered in there, but still nonetheless impactful, are Dowdy, Wilhoit, and Unger. And then just to the north is that Eagle Creek Fire that impacted the gorge back in 2017. We have been bracketed by fire around our fire district. The Gorge Fire in 2017 was 6 miles as the crow flies from our borders. The Riverside Fire moved 17 miles in one 24-hour period over heavy timber. I've never seen anything like that, and nor have any of the people I've talked to. That was consuming 1 acre a second at its height. I also want to kind of throw this one in. We have the last remaining corridor that traverses between Central Oregon and the Valley that has not been impacted by fire, and that's a 26 corridor. So it aligns just like the others with an east-west pattern, and we get an offshore flow. Thankfully, we had a power safety shutdown in 20, but with that's the last holdout in the state, unfortunately for us.
Hey, Brent, before we move on, as you went back to 91, so that was about 180,000 acres a year on an average, right?
Yep.
You fast forward the next 2 years, it doubles, 380. Now we're looking right here at 760, 780,000 acres per year. If we keep going down that trend, for the next 10 years, we're continually doubling, right? That's super concerning.
That's as the numbers bear out, and I want to let folks know, just because it's burned once doesn't mean it won't burn again. Our own thing, you can't see it buried up here in the Riverside fire, but that burned over the Pit 36 scar in 2014, and it usually fires will settle down going through an old burn scar, and in that case it did not. It burned through just as if it was just like the rest of it. So just because it's in red on the map doesn't mean that it's safe or that it won't burn again. It most definitely can and will burn again, given the right conditions. So let's do something. And before I get to Milo McIver fire of this year, I want to say that I've been in some capacity in this agency since 1996. And before 2020, to the best of my recollection, the fire district's never put its citizens in level 3 evacuation. We did it in 2020, we did it again in 2021, and then we did it again in 2022 with the Milo McIver fire. That's resonated with me, and we've got a changing situation on our hands. I liken it to a fight. How many times you got to get hit in the face before you realize you're in fight? And I think we're in fight. So we'll go into Milo McIver. This is the impactful fire of this year during the offshore flow events that we get every September to varying degrees. This fire started down on the McIver State Park area, down in the lower right-hand corner of the large area encapsulated in that red vignette. And with the east wind progressed through an ember shower over about a half mile with 60 different spot fires moving out in front of it. As you can see, what many people think or have in their mind when it comes to wildfires, that it's this wall of flame consuming everything in front of it, but that's actually not the case. Wildfire propagates itself usually through wind and ember showers. That could be a house, it can be a tree, and those embers go out in front of the main body of fire, and those are what start and propagate the fire, really more so than the flaming front that goes through it. So we came in and helped the neighboring agency and assisted them through mutual aid. All fire agencies within the county mutually support one another when able. 2020, there was so much fire on the landscape during that September event, over 1 million acres at one point. All at the same time, there was no one to draw upon. So we were it. Everyone did the best they could. Fortunately, in this case, we really only had the one fire going on in the metro area. So we were able to draw upon our neighboring collaborative fire agencies. So as this fire progressed and embers and things kept propagating towards the west, we were very fortunate. You can see throughout this, we can't just put a line of people on this and expect to stop this. With all the spot fires happening, you've got to have the line of people, so to speak, but you've also got to have people in reserve picking up the spot fires and making sure and being on the lookout and corralling those up as they start, because this fire is a constant ember generator until you can get it suppressed. So you need those additional people because each one of these small fires has the potential to grow into a larger fire and the potential to then spot and keep going, and it leapfrogs itself. So fortunately, as resources were being called in, this fire in the upper left-hand corner, that larger piece right there in the corner, a lot of amazing work by homeowners, but also by happenstance, that was a staging area for some of our external partner agencies, and they were able to get that fire suppressed before it impacted the barns and the buildings right there in the upper left-hand corner. Had they not been there, had folks not been able to suppress that fire and fire had been able to creep into those buildings, there's a very high likelihood that building would have caught on fire, created embers, and then cast them into the wind, propagating the fire well off this map and into the Viola drainage.
So Brent, real quick, when you talk about embers, right, it's not just small little, I mean, sometimes these are like baseball size embers, right, that are getting thrown.
Absolutely, it can be well. Any spark can start a fire
Of course.
in the conditions. But embers can be as large as softballs, even basketballs, given enough convective column. For instance, in 2017 on the Eagle Creek fire, that fire spotted 3.5 miles across the Columbia River and started the fire on Archer Mountain. So it's really about weather conditions. It's about what's propagating. You know, is it trees? Is it homes? We've got to think about home-to-home structure ignitions. That's something else. Everything on this picture to fire is fuel. It doesn't matter if it's a tree. It doesn't matter if it's grass. It doesn't matter if it's a building or a car or something else. If it can burn, the fire makes no discrimination. It will burn it given the right opportunities. And the other thing we bring this up is that fire respects no geopolitical boundary. It doesn't separate us from the neighbor beyond us. So we're all in this as a cohesive strategy to try to suppress these fires, but it takes a team to do this. So that's what we're facing. And quite frankly, we've got to change. We've got to adapt to what we're facing out there, and having the right people, tools, and equipment to do it is paramount.
Totally.
And so this last picture, this is the results, unfortunately, of a home that was impacted by fire. And as you can see from this photo, it's complete and utter devastation. And if you'll notice around this, that's gravel. That's not the flaming front that consumed that house. Even the trees in the background still show green. But that's embers. Embers got into something that was combustible. It took hold. There wasn't enough people there to catch that fire when it was small. And unfortunately, the structure burned to the ground. So this was a 2-story house. You can see ATVs out there. Those ATVs probably caught on fire from the radiant heat from when the structure burned. And it's complete and utter devastation. I've seen many of these from California to New Mexico. I've seen this too much. I don't want to see it here. So that's why this is what we're trying to prevent.
Awesome. Thanks, Brent.
All right, thanks, Brent. Just switching gears here just a little bit. Why does your fire department exist? Why are we here? What else do we do besides the wildfires? And your local community fire stations are part of a big organization that is an all hazards fire department. We respond, just like the rig in the backdrop here, to hazardous materials calls. We respond to trench rescue, confined space rescue, water rescues. We respond to all types of medical calls, cardiac arrest, strokes. We respond to lift assist, smoke investigations, miscellaneous calls. We run about 30,000 calls a year as a fire department. We respond to periods of elevated call volume when we have the snowstorms, we have the ice storms. Last June, 117-degree stretch of weather in late June. Our call volume is it doubles or triples during those time frames. We respond to everything while the wildfires are still going on. So I just want to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about kind of what we're looking at with this levy and how we can ensure that our heavy resources, our fire engines and our ladder trucks and our brush units are available for the major emergency. I want to talk about how one way that we're going to get there with this levy. The issue on hand right now is that we have fire engines as a primary response vehicle around our fire district. A fire engine weighs about 40,000 pounds. That's what we call it, a heavy resource. It has firefighters on there that are paramedics. It responds on everything. If it's a lift assist that needs just a few people, it goes. If it's a fire where we need a whole lot of people, it goes, and everything in between. The fire engine is full of critical life-saving equipment, specialized gear to help mitigate different types of emergencies. Now you take that and you put it into a hazardous materials rig, has specialized gear. A ladder company has specialized equipment on it, specially trained firefighters that are specially trained for those major emergencies. When we end up running 30,000 calls a year, there's times where that fire engine's committed on a call where we don't have anybody left in the fire station to take the second call. Or if it's on a low acuity call and the emergency comes in, it's not available. And we're looking to find ways to improve the response reliability out of our heavy resources. The impact that this has is potentially catastrophic. The fire department exists. We want to save lives and protect property. That's why we are here. That's why we put effort into training and preparedness and are able to get out and make these quick stops on fires, or have the intent to go out there and make a quick stop on fires to get somebody out of cardiac arrest, have major life-changing impacts to our community. That's why we're here. And we want to improve every opportunity for success. And right now, there's times where out of those 30,000 calls, not every call happens one at a time. They stack up on top of each other. And your fire department, if their local department or station is not staffed because they're on another call, and there's an emergency down the road, a fire engine comes from another responding station with a delayed response. That delayed response is very, very impactful. So what I want to do is just propose our alternative response model. We're looking to get lighter units that are on the road that can handle the lower acuity calls and keep the specialized pieces of equipment in the fire stations. That's our goal with this. The lighter resource is a smaller vehicle, like a pickup or an ambulance-sized vehicle that has a couple trained paramedic firefighters on there that can go and handle these low acuity calls and leave the big pieces of equipment available for the emergencies. That is what we're looking to do. So out of the 30,000 calls that we run a year, we're looking at about 20% of those calls can be taken with the lighter resources. That is a drastic improvement on our response reliability from our heavy resources. So I know the fire chief is going to talk about the other response concepts that we have with this levy, but this is one of the most impactful that we can have, is keeping with the high call volume and keeping our rigs in service.
Awesome, Dan. Thank you so much. Staffing. This is the third part of what we are coming to you about, is staffing. Ladies and gentlemen, the thing that the fire department is up against is time. Time is our enemy. Whether it's a cardiac arrest, whether it's a structure fire, whether it's a wildland fire, whether it's somebody trapped inside of a structure fire, time is our enemy. We're battling time. And as we look at how we can best combat time, it's staffing fire stations that aren't currently staffed. It's staffing fire engines that are currently staffed with the right number of personnel that meets national standards, that meets what our neighboring agencies like Tualatin Valley and Portland Fire offer. It's getting the right amount of resources on the call at the quickest, most effective time. There was a study in 2011 done by NIOSH that shows the difference between a 3-person company and a 4-person company, and the effectiveness on the fire ground, the effectiveness on medical calls, and there's a 25% efficiency increase in time, in survivability, having 4-person staffing versus 3-person staffing. The flexibility that this gives your fire department as far as response vehicles. If you look in the rural setting, like we've talked a lot about today, let's throw out a station there, it doesn't really matter, just a rural station, having 3-person staffing versus 4. With 4-person staffing, if I get a structure fire, I can take the fire engine and I can take a water tender, because most of our rural areas do not have hydrants. And so now I'm taking a fire engine that has 650 gallons, and I'm taking a water tender that has 3,000 gallons. So now I have 3,600 gallons on the fire scene with 4 people to mitigate the fire that you're facing. If it's a grass fire, we have the apparatus there, and we have the versatility having 4-person staffing to mix up taking a brush truck, taking a fire engine, and taking a water tender. It offers flexibility for us as far as response. But here's a big thing with the 4-person staffing that we're talking about is, as a fire department in the state of Oregon, We have our own OSHA, and OSHA is a federal agency, but the state of Oregon has its own. And they put limitations on your fire department on when you can commence an internal fire attack. And you have to have what they call 2 in and 2 out. And so with a 3-person company, before you can commence an interior fire attack, you have to have a second fire engine come, and then you can make interior fire attack. With 4-person staffing, you're able to do that because you have the 2 people that can go inside with the 2 people that are outside, which again battles time. And that's our enemy, is time. Time is what we battle to save lives. So, issue, Clackamas Fire Crews, they're simply understaffed. We are understaffed with our comparing agencies. We're understaffed with our ability to better serve you. We have some of the most amazing people here at Clackamas Fire that serve you day in and day out. They give of themselves daily, and they take great pride in being able to serve. But they are understaffed. So the impact for us is we have concerns around not only the safety of our firefighters, the safety of our public, but also making sure that we have that effective response so that we can battle time. So our solution for this is the proposed levy is looking to fund 58 to 66 firefighters, which would add about 10 to 12 4-person staffed companies, from 3 to 4. We're also looking at Station 12 and Station 13, Logan and Clark's, and then that alternative response vehicles that Dan Muelich was talking about, okay? Doing this, adding those 58 to 66 full-time firefighters, that's going to help allow us to provide safe and effective staffing models across the whole entire fire district, wall to wall, from one side of our coverage area all the way to the other side, benefiting every one of our communities that we serve in all of the areas. And this will help us to increase our preparedness and our ability to respond to everything that we face, including wildfire response. Next slide. Big thing, how much is this going to cost? What's this mean to me, and how much is this going to cost? So Clackamas Fire is evaluating a 5-year local levy option. So again, 5-year local levy option that's going to provide annual funding of about $14.5 million to the fire district. What that will cost is 52 cents per thousand to the taxpayer. Now, here's something I need to help people understand is the difference between assessed value and real market value. What we collect taxes on based on Measure 5 and Measure 47, Measure 5 was in 1997, 97, and Measure 47 was in 98, okay? And what that did was that limited the ability for taxing districts, taxing entities, to tax on real market value. They assessed everybody's property, commercial, real estate, private real estate, public homeowners, and they set the value of the home and they capped it there. And then the agencies are only allowed to, the assessed valuation goes up 3%. So to give you an idea, okay, the median assessed valuation for Clackamas Fire District, the citizens we serve, is $253,000. So if you look at that compared to a home in Oregon City, assessed valuation is $253,000. The real market value on that might be $650,000 to $700,000. Here in Happy Valley, that median range is right around $345,000. But the real market value of that $345,000 assessed valuation might be $900,000 to $1 million. But we don't collect on the $900,000 to $1 million. We collect on the $300,000, the $343,000, or the $253,000, depending on where you're at and where you live. This causes a big issue for the fire department as far as funding and to maintain the level of service that we need to for you, and that is why we are here today. So what we're looking at is 52 cents per thousand, and what that equates to on the median home value is about $138 a year to you. You break that down, it's about $12 a month. So it was an interesting thing. Somebody said, was it 36 cents a day?
About 34.
34 cents a day is what this costs the median homeowner within Clackamas Fire District. Next slide, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief. That was really good, demonstrating how we've taken that all-inclusive and wall-to-wall approach, which was very important for us. So next steps, So now, November through January, we're doing the community forums. We're approaching small groups, and we're presenting a lot of this information that you're getting today, and in the same formats. And in January, at the Board of Directors meeting for Clackamas Fire District, we will bring everything that we've learned from all of these interactions, all of the surveys that we have going on. And if you haven't taken the survey, go to our website. There's a link there to take the survey. We would love to hear from you. And all of the in-person information that we've gathered, we'll bring that to the board, and they will have the task of deciding whether they are going to refer it to the voters or not. If they refer it to the voters, then the real work starts, and we will go from January to May, out gathering more information and also delivering the message so that people aren't caught off guard.
Real quick, I just got one thing to say real quick, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
So I love that you brought that up, Steve. Our approach with this. Our approach has been a transparent approach.
Absolutely.
We are not locked in to what we're doing. What we are doing is coming to you as a taxpayer, letting you know where we are, letting you know our problems, and letting you know our risks and what we're up against. And we're coming to you to see if there's a temperature for this. And then what we do is we take it to the board of directors, who then makes that decision of whether or not to refer this. So it is really important to us as your fire department to let you know what we're facing. And so yeah, I wanted to say that. Thank you for bringing that piece up, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isaac.
Perfect. Well, with that, we are going to take about a 15-minute break. And if you do have questions that you'd like answered when we come back, feel free to grab a card over there and write them on the card, put them in the hat. And again, feel free to express your questions online, and we can take those as well. So we will see you back here in about 15 minutes. All right, if you guys are ready, we'll jump into these questions. And yeah, some of these came from online, some of them from you guys here tonight. And if we don't get to your question, by the time our time runs out, we're going to be hanging out afterwards. So feel free to come up. And for those of you listening online, please continue to send your questions and we'll get those answered the best way we can. And we will be posting a frequently asked questions page on our website about the levy. So we'll dive right into the first question. How many firefighters are used to fight wildfire the size of one like McIver?
That's a great question. Brent, you want to take that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, in the immediate, it's who's available right there. But I believe in total, we were 86 firefighters and I forget how many people, 20 pieces of apparatus?
Yeah,
that
we had,
ultimately-
Blackman's Fire sent 43 pieces
Yeah,
of
that's what it
apparatus and 87 firefighters
Yeah.
to that fire,
Thank
just
you.
from our agency.
Yeah, just our agency. Yep. So that was just our agency, but we also had to rely upon partner agencies from Portland as well as Tualatin Valley to assist and boost those numbers. So I think it's safe to say for a 30-acre fire of that size, given the weather conditions occurring at the time, it was well north of 100 firefighters. And even with those numbers, unfortunately, there were homes and structures that were impacted by that event.
Perfect. How would the levy improve response times?
That's a great question. I'll take that and then you guys, I've got this thing here.
Yeah, you're good.
Does that work? All right. Thanks, though. I appreciate the mic. That was good. Okay, would you say that one more time because I lost my train of thought?
How would the levy improve response times?
Perfect. So the levy's going to help improve response times, multiple factors. If you look at that lighter resource unit, having that lighter resource unit and trying to get one of those, being in every battalion is where we're trying to strive for in the future, is having that take up about 3,000 calls from the heavy assets, which keeps them centrally located and able to respond to the call. So that's going to help in increasing response times. The other thing with this is as far as response times, the response times isn't necessarily going to drastically improve except for the areas in Logan and in Clarks. But what will improve is the effective response time and the time that the adequate number of firefighters are on scene quicker. And there's a difference there. The response time is dictated mostly based on where stations are located and things of that nature. But by having a 4-person staffing to be able to arrive on scene, commence an interior fire attack and save lives and extinguish the fire, that's where that effective response force and increasing the firefighters is going to help us out. So you will have areas of station in Logan and Clarks where the response times will be drastically improved because now those stations will be 24/7. And then also the areas where we are increasing to 4-person staffing, it's getting those adequate a number of firefighters on scene to be able to mitigate the emergency, get in there and save lives, not reliant so heavily on outside engine companies coming in or ladder companies. Is there anything else I missed with that question that you guys think?
Yeah, I think that one of the big points is the second call.
Yeah,
Can't forget about the second call.
perfect.
The first call draws a response unit out of the area, out of the fire station. And when that second call happens, now you're bringing in somebody else. So in the rural setting, that's another 12 to 15 minutes response time to get in there. So this levy is going to help really bolster our ability to handle the second call that happens with a combination of the lighter resource. We're also going to have hopefully more people on fire engines that won't draw as many of those to one specific incident. They'll leave some available in quarters as well.
Yeah, I love that you hit on that second call. Goes back to Brent, you talking about the McIver fire. We were lucky we just had that one fire versus another one. And that's what we faced in 2020 was the 144 working fires in 72 hours. There was multiple times where we would have resources and the right amount of resources we felt on the fire that we would have to pull to go to these other fires because we're on fire. And so that's what adding 66 firefighters does, is that helps us with that second or third call. I love that you brought that up.
Nick, when you say Logan and Clarkson, you say 24/7, you mean?
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. 24/7. That's great. That's inside baseball firefighter talk there. So it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's what 24/7 means. It means you will have a firefighters staff there all the time.
Perfect. Yeah, great. Thanks for clarifying that. And then more on staffing. If the levy is passed on a May ballot, will the projected revenue not be available until November, or when can we begin interviewing for more staff?
Perfect. So November is when we would be collecting. So if it passed in May, we would collect in November. But that process for us would have to start a little bit early. We're reaching out to the community. That's why we're kind of doing this, is we're trying to get that pulse rate, trying to see if there's a temperature for this. We are also doing polling and some quantitative surveys and having the community fill out the qualitative, which is online, and the quantitative survey, which is going to be coming. We'll be able to kind of get a feeling of what the temperature is out there within our communities. And that's going to help us to kind of start throwing out processes that we won't really commit to until we know that the May ballot pass.
I think it's important to note, Nick, also that we are bound by civil service rules when
Yes.
we do our hiring, so we really can't jump too far ahead, but we can start to prepare now. If the board of directors does refer this to the community, we can sort of have a plan in place. We just can't really commit without knowing it's going to happen. Because we are bound by certain rules and regulations.
Thanks, Steve.
Great. How are wildfire mitigation crews currently funded, and is Crew 30 in that group?
Yeah, so mitigation crews are those crews that mitigate fire or fuels from the landscape. Crew 30 is a fire recovery crew that's funded through a grant, a National Dislocated Workers Grant, as a result of the 2020 fires. So while they cannot mitigate through their funding statute, which runs out at about the middle of this next season, they can't mitigate future events. They can just do the repair work from the events of 2020. But those fuels mitigation crews and crews such as that, seasonal things, are usually funded through grants and things of that nature, unless they have a stable funding source from a local tax base. Crew 30, since we're on that topic, the fire district was incredibly fortunate to partner creatively with a couple other governmental agencies, specifically Clackamas Community College, Workforce Oregon, and Crew 30 is the first permanent seasonal. What I mean is they're full time during the season fire crew and response crew hosted by a structural fire agency anywhere in the Northwest. So Region 6, Forest Service Region 6, which is Oregon and Washington. While this is not a new concept by any means down in California and other regions throughout the West, for us specifically here in the Northwest, as a municipal fire agency, this is the first of its kind. Fortunately, they were here and available to come off grant funding, go onto our funding when the McIver fire happened, and they were utilized 10 times within the district this year on different wildfire events that were at least a quarter to a half acre or more. So, like I said, I've been around in different capacities in the district since 1996. And this year, I don't know if it's just my vantage or what, but we've had more wildfire on the landscape in district this year than I think we've had ever that I can remember. That's anecdotal. I don't have the things to back that up per se at this time, but But we've never had a crew except last year, and then we have the crew again this year, and we've utilized them 10 times, doing all kinds of work in hazard trees that are burned and impacted and could come down and hurt people. They have the skill set and the equipment, chainsaws and whatnot, to take care of those trees to make sure they don't fall on passerbys or other folks once the fire is put out. So it's been an incredible resource for us. But as of right now, that funding only goes through the middle of next summer.
And I love that you said that. They're a specialized group. That's what they do.
Yep, that's what they do all the time.
Yeah.
And it is quite a group of folks. A real developmental opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you. This will probably be another one for you. So wildfires being mostly rural, how does that compare to urban fires and the loss of property and lives?
Okay, if I'm understanding, wildfires being an urban or rural problem, I think it's an us problem, quite frankly. And I'll utilize a couple of events that I've been on that wouldn't be classified as rural. So 2017 went down to the Thomas Fire, among other fires in Southern California in December of that year. The Thomas Fire, for those who may remember, was Ventura County. It went to the city of Ventura, and then it went to the city of Ojai, and then it went to the city of Santa Barbara. And I definitely wouldn't, while consisting of quite a bit of rural area, I wouldn't classify Ventura as a rural place. And that's the wildfire extended into structures, and then it was structure to structure ignition. The water systems collapsed because the draw was too much. I see similarities in some of our landscape. It's very possible. So just because wildland may come from a rural setting doesn't mean it can't go into a more urban setting. And then you have the same problem.
Yeah, I love that, Brent. Do you mind if I chime in here just a little bit? As I look at our surroundings here, this is reminiscent to me of Oakland Hills Fire in 1991. Okay, Oakland Hill Fire is in the city of Oakland, and if you look at the hill in Happy Valley, they're eerily familiar. What we have in this area is, that's why it's called the WUI, Wildland Urban Interface, is you have as urban sprawl happens, you have homes built in areas where there's a lot of wildlife and wildfire hazards. And as I look at the Happy Valley Hill, I see Oakland Hills Fire, which was a big deal in 1991. So, yeah.
And I think you were queuing in on the second part of that question is, why is the major part of this levy focused on wildfires?
Great. That's a great question. I wouldn't say that the major focus of this is on wildfires. What we're trying to do is educate of the risks that we see. So there's three risks that we see. One of those risks is wildfire. The second risk is the fact that we aren't staffed appropriately per apparatus to meet national standards, as well as the standards that are in the area that other fire agencies just like our size have. It's not safe for our communities. It's not safe for our firefighters, and so we're not staffed adequately. And the third thing is being able to adequately respond with lighter resources to the urban areas to free up those assets. So that's really what our three focuses are here. We are talking a lot about wildfires because that is so raw. It is a new norm for our area. But let's, ladies and gentlemen, if I'm coming across is that's our only focus is wildfires, it's not. We are an all hazard fire agency. We respond to medicals. We are here to save lives. That is why we exist. And what we are talking about here is saving lives and protecting property. That is our focus. The three things that we are explaining to you, wildfires, the increased staffing, the lighter resource units, it's because those three things save lives and they protect property. Our threats out there are wildfires. That is a real threat for this area. And as the slide that Brent showed earlier, from 1992 until now, we are having more fire on the landscape, whether it's whatever you think it is, we are having a shift in weather patterns moving forward and moving into our area. And it's been happening over the last 30 years. And the projections for the next 10 years are scary. So we are talking about risk is what we are talking about, and the things that we face. And we think we know we have a plan to help mitigate that risk. Simple fact is we need you. We need each and every one of you.
That's great. And it kind of goes right into this question. So if CFD taxpayers, it's Clackamas Fire District taxpayers, are being asked to step up above the current ask, how are neighboring agencies responding to the increase in disasters? And are they asking for more from their investors?
That's a great question. Steve, you want to hit on this as far as how we compare to other agencies as far as levies and things of that nature?
Sure. If we look around our surrounding areas, we are the only one that doesn't have this funding stream that comes from the public, in addition to the taxes that are levied. Tualatin Valley has, and Portland is a city, but they use a city budget, but they get larger amounts of the city budget to fund these types of things. So it's not to keep up with the Joneses. That's a misconception. What it is to provide the service to the communities that we serve in a wall-to-wall approach. And over months of meeting through this, and this wasn't the first idea that we went through as the future funding task force, but it was the one that we all landed on that would give us the ability to start down this path that is going to set the agency, the community, and all of our customers up for not just the 5-year, because this is a 5-year levy. So hopefully through our actions every year, we're able to show that we are proving what we said and we're doing what we're doing. But we do have to come back to you in 5 years and ask again for a renewal. But this was what we landed on that will set us up for 20 years, 25 years, into 30 years of service and preparedness for the customer. So we feel that we're unique in the fact that we've gone this far, but we've gone this far, and that's as far as we can go without your help.
And at the simplest of answers for that question, neighboring fire agencies are doing the exact same thing that we are doing. They've actually done it before we have.
Great. Given the large percentage of district voters that live in urban areas such as Oregon City, can you explain the ripple effect of more adequate staffing across the board?
That's a great question. You want to take that, Dana?
Yeah, and I can't help myself. I gotta go back one question.
Oh,
or two
sweet.
questions.
I love it. Do it.
So we're talking about the urban and rural. We're on 172nd in Pleasant Valley right now. We had a fire in the drainage this year on 152nd and 212. We've had fires down by Clackamas Town Center. We've had multiple buildings on fire within our core area, our densely populated areas. Last year we had, during the heat stretch, we had a massive fire on Courtney off of Highway 99 in Oak Lodge. And that was, we were close to burning the block down, or multiple blocks with that. So when we say fire and wildfire, this is the fire response. And now we look at getting into how we are going to diversify this and how this is going to impact the urban areas and how it's going to benefit that. The chief spoke to the wall to wall. Having 4 people on 10 to 12 fire engines makes a huge difference in how we combat a fire, how many people we can get to a fire in the first few critical minutes of the incident to keep fires small, like Chief Olson said. Diversifying and putting those people around the entire organization is going to have a positive impact everywhere. One of the biggest things that's kind of hard to paint the picture of, but that when we have a full response go to a fire, and you ever heard the term of many hands make light work? It is, we have so many, we need enough people to do critical tasks on a fire ground that the work gets accomplished quicker and allows the crews to become available to get back in their fire station, available for another call. Now, we take that concept and we throw it across the entire organization. That's how we're diversifying our response model with this levy.
Perfect. And this would kind of play into that. Could you please describe what the alternative response units would be and where you would place them strategically?
Yeah, this is, we use the terms, and we have a lot of terms in the fire service here, and one of them is the right rig on the right call. Another one is the lighter resource, the heavy asset, and what that actually means. So we have, another term is the core. We have the core of our organization, of our fire district is our most densely populated area. So we're looking at like the Clackamas Town Center area. We're looking at Oregon City, where the majority of our call volume is. If you throw it all on a map, the majority of the calls happen where most of the people live. And so that is where we're looking at strategically placing those lighter resources. Would be, we would take the data that shows where all those calls are and where they could best be utilized, and by keeping the heavy assets in quarters. So overall numbers that we're looking at, the fire chief had mentioned about 3,000 calls per unit. If we put 2 of those in, that is a drastic improvement to our response reliability in the core area. Also in that core area are where most of the fires are, where most of the house fires are. In the last 2 days, we had 3 working structure fires in our core area. Having rigs available with 4-person staffing is critical, absolutely critical to keeping those fires small and saving lives.
Yeah, that's great. And keeping on the topic of types of equipment, how many ALS apparatus do you currently have? And maybe explain what ALS means.
Absolutely. So ALS is advanced life support, which means paramedic on every rig. You'll see on every Clackamas fire apparatus that it says paramedic unit on there. And so we have a minimum of 1 paramedic on every rig. What that does, balancing that across the organization, we have 18 today. We have 18 staffed fire engines. We have the 2 communities that are unstaffed right now. Having a response plan with paramedics, those 18 stations is what it takes to save somebody from cardiac arrest, get somebody to the hospital quick because of a stroke, whatever it may be. Having the diversified number of paramedics is critical. We have some apparatus have multiple paramedics depending on the staffing for the day, but we're always going to carry a minimum of 1. And did I answer that entire question?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
And keeping on the topic, how many different types of rigs do we have in the district?
Great question.
That's a great question. Okay, I'm an apparatus guy, so I love this stuff. So we have ambulances that respond out of Oregon City and Oak Lodge. We have fire engines that carry hose and water and stretch lines inside of a structure to extinguish a fire. We have ladder trucks, which are tillered apparatus that are the old traditional hook and ladder that have, they carry tools and ladders. They have a 100-foot ladder riding on top of it.
Extrication equipment.
We have extrication equipment. We have a heavy rescue. Our heavy rescue is based out of Station 5, up on about the 9300 block of Kazi, just above 205. That is specialized equipment for urban search and rescue, for structural collapse, trench, confined space. With that is also the same equipment is up in Oregon City as well. Right behind me, we have a hazardous materials response unit, which is part of State Team 3. We have, gosh, what else do we have?
Type
for
3s, type
No,
6s.
we do. We haven't hit the wildland thing
Yeah.
yet. So now we have type 6 brush pickups. We have type 3, a 4x4 larger brush units that respond off road. And we have water tenders that carry about 3,000 gallons of water apiece. With that, the fire chief had talked about diversifying like our ability to respond out of a fire station. We have 3 people in the majority of our fire stations, and some of them have 3 pieces of equipment, different pieces of equipment. by adding the fourth firefighter to most of our companies, we can get more of those rigs out on the initial response. And that is, it's a great question. It just ties into the versatility being an all hazards organization and being able to mitigate every emergency that comes our way.
Would you also just speak real quickly to the rehab unit and the command vehicles that we have as well? That's just, it's water rescue.
Oh geez, see, everybody's going, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so we do the water, we have a jet boat and we have drift boats with a water rescue program. So we have a water rescue vehicle that tows them. We have a battalion chief sitting in the room that drives around in a command vehicle and is our incident commander on major incidents. We have our rehab volunteer program that brings air for our SCBA bottles, brings hydration to an incident, to a prolonged incident. I gotta be missing something.
Investigators.
The investigators.
Volunteer program.
We got it all. This is gonna go on and on and on, so.
Command bus,
Yeah.
investigator vehicles. I mean, we are an all hazard fire department. We have pretty much every piece of apparatus that exists to better serve you. We have.
Yeah, if you drive by and look at the front apparatus bay windows of any fire station, you'll notice that every single one of them is full. But there's only 3 people in most cases that take those rigs out. We handle everything when there's nobody else but the fire department to take on these emergencies. So we have to be prepared. We just need the people that can get those rigs out and respond to that call.
I think that's an important point. It's, we have the apparatus, we need the people to take the apparatus.
That's great. And we have about 9 or 10 minutes left. So we're going to ask about 3 more questions. And then, like I said, if you have some and you want to ask afterwards, we'll be hanging out to answer those questions. So is the lack of staffing appropriate resources a statewide problem or just specific to Clackamas Fire?
That's a great question. Okay, so I think that, I think this is actually a national problem with how apparatus are staffed. It's not unique to Clackamas Fire. It's unique here because our neighbors to the west, our neighbors to the north are staffed with 4-person staffing. We have agencies, and just real quick before I say it, doesn't Canby have 4-person on their apparatus, and Sandy has 4-person on their apparatus? And so even some of the smaller agencies have 4-person on their frontline engines. So we're surrounded with companies that have 4-person staffing. We also have companies that are departments that are around us that have 3-person staffing. But the simple fact of the matter is the national standard is 4. And so to answer that question, this is a nationwide problem. But is the question, are they getting at getting future firefighters, or are they asking just currently where we're at as far as the understaffing in the fire service?
Yeah, just currently where we're at. Is the problem just specific to us, or
No, it's not unique to just us. It's across the nation.
will you need to renew the levy if passed in 5 years?
Yes.
Yes, 100%. You want to speak to that?
Yeah, as I touched on earlier, it's a local option for 5 years. And which that means we just have to come back every 5 years and prove what we've done and how we've distributed the funds and we're doing what we say. And that we'll ask for your help again to continue doing the great things that we're doing. And that's every 5 years that we'd have to do that.
Perfect. And the last question for tonight is simply, how can I get involved?
That's a great question. Steve, would you go on and take that one?
Sure. So yeah, a lot of ways to get involved. One of them is what you're doing tonight, which is watching this or attending in person. And we thank you very much for that. Also, we have another one coming up January 4th, which will be a sort of an accumulation of what we've learned so far and maybe a little bit different information, basically the same. But you can go to our website and take the survey. Your opinion and what you say matters to us. We really want to hear from you, and we want to hear where we can improve, if we're hitting the mark, if we're not. So you can take that survey. If you have specific questions, there's a link on our website that has the PIO's email information. So don't be shy, ask any question you want. And Then if you are part of a group, a homeowners association, a CPO, or anything, you'd like us to come and do maybe a brief overview of what we're talking about, please reach out to the PIO and we'll get it hopefully scheduled, and we'll get it worked into the schedule for us, if not all of us, but maybe one or two of us to come and speak on the topic. We're happy to speak on the topic for you.
And the PIO is a public information officer.
Absolutely, yeah.
It is, his information is on the clackamasfire.com.
Yep.
And if you click on these community events, at the bottom of that information sheet, right, is where his information is.
Absolutely. Yep.
Perfect. So what about, I'm just gonna go a step further. What happens if we get a temperature here and of that this is gonna, that we are going to take this to the board and the board refers us to the community for a levy? How can citizens get involved then?
Well, we do have public meetings. We have board meetings. We have public meetings. They're also available on Zoom. You can pose questions there, or you can come in person, and you can, whether you're support or not, you can come and voice your opinion there. We're happy to have you. Would love to hear from you there. In addition, you can also reach out to the public information officer if you have a specific question for an elected official, and he'll make sure that it gets there.
I love that. The key with this for us, I think, and what you're hitting on is we need you.
Yes.
We need your involvement. We need you to be engaged with us as we're coming out and asking for your help. We exist, our whole existence is to better serve you. That's why we're here. We are here for you. Everything we do, our whole entire job is solely focused on you. And as your fire chief, that's why I'm standing before you today, talking to you about this. We are trying to be as transparent and as open book, letting you know where we are. And what you have right now is you have a good fire agency. You have amazing members that their focus is on better serving you. But we're trying to get from being a good fire agency to a great fire agency. And what is inhibiting us and keeping us from doing that is the staffing levels that we need. I don't take this lightly, coming to you and asking for help. As firefighters, when 911 calls, we run into the heat of battle. We run into places where people are running away from. Our whole focus is on saving lives. Our whole focus is on not letting that picture that you showed happen. That's why we're here. We have a tough time asking for help. We have a tough time coming to you and saying that we need your help here. But ladies and gentlemen, as your fire chief, we need you. We need you for what the risks that I am seeing coming in the next 10 years, in the next 3 to 5. We need to be adequately staffed to be able to be here for you and to be able to mitigate the emergencies that we face. I can't thank you enough for your time. I can't thank you enough for your questions. Please reach out to us. Please reach out to the board. If you have concerns, please ask. We're here for you. We want to answer your questions, and like our purpose statement, we strive to bring calm to chaos. And that's why we're here. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everybody that attended here in person. And thank you to everybody that came and watched this live. And yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Yeah, perfect. And then we have another meeting coming up on January 4th, as was mentioned before. So basically, when we get a feel for what the information we have coming in on those surveys and the response from these meetings, that meeting will be more of a direction. We're going to come to you and we're going to inform you, hey, this is kind of what we're hearing and this is what we plan on doing. So please attend that. And if you have any further questions, like you said, feel free to jump online and submit those. So thanks again.
Thank you.